Traditionally, asking for straight cash at a wedding, it felt a lot like showing up to a black tie event wearing, like, stained sweatpants.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It was this ultimate unspoken faux pas. You were just expected to register for the fine china, smile graciously when you got your fourth crystal vase, and, never, ever mention money.
It was a very strict social contract. I mean, the community provided the physical items to build a household, and the couple just accepted them.
Whether they needed a silver-plated gravy boat or not.
Exactly. You took the gravy boat and you wrote a nice note.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive,
Yeah.
because we are looking at how that entire dynamic has just completely flipped.
It really has.
Yeah, if you look at a wedding invitation on your fridge right now, there is a very good chance it bypasses the department store entirely. It probably has a direct link to a house fund or a honeymoon fund.
Which is such a massive shift from even a decade ago.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack how this age-old tradition fundamentally shifted and how couples in 2026 are navigating the surprisingly complex legal, financial, and social realities of asking for cash instead of physical objects.
And to really understand why this shift happened, we have to look at the changing demographics of marriage itself.
The who and the when.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The reality of who is getting married today and the life stage they're in, it's completely different than a generation ago. Couples are frequently living together for years before they tie the knot.
Right. So they're already blending two fully furnished apartments into one.
Yes, they already have the blender.
They have the towels, the dishes, the coffee maker. Giving them an antiquated starter pack for life just doesn't make logical sense, right? Their shelves are already full.
Right, so their priorities are naturally going to shift away from physical objects and move toward long-term stability.
Which makes total sense.
A modern couple is looking at experiences, like travel, or major financial hurdles, like, a down payment on a first home.
Or even just covering the massive expense of the wedding itself.
Precisely. Or building an emergency savings net.
Hmm.
The traditional registry format just completely fails to accommodate those modern economic pressures.
So if you're actively planning a wedding yourself right now, or, if you're staring at that invitation on your fridge wondering why you're being directed to a website to fund someone's travel expenses, this deep dive is for you. We're going to reveal the fascinating machinery running behind the scenes of modern gifting.
A whole different world now.
It is. We are moving away from tangible goods toward pure digital convenience. I mean, a guest halfway across the world doesn't have to ship a heavy kitchen appliance internationally anymore. They can just transfer funds from their phone.
Which is incredible for accessibility.
It is, but I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, sure.
If we are just exchanging digital currency now, sending raw numbers from one bank account to another,
Yeah?
doesn't that strip the romance entirely out of the gift?
That is a very common concern.
Because it feels like paying off someone's credit card bill rather than celebrating a milestone. How do couples avoid making this feel like a cold corporate transaction?
Well, that tension is basically the central challenge of the modern registry. And the solution lies in a psychological concept, which is purpose.
Purpose, okay.
Yeah. When you remove the physical item from the equation, you leave a void. You have to fill that void with a specific narrative life goal.
So you aren't just handing over raw, unassigned cash.
Right. You're directly funding a tangible piece of their future home or a very specific experience on their honeymoon. But to make that pivot successfully, it requires a highly organized approach to maintain the guest's trust.
Because a digital transaction feels like a black hole if there's no story attached to it.
Exactly. No one wants to just throw money into a void.
Which brings up a very different kind of tension, because the moment you start crowdsourcing large amounts of money online, well, establishing a narrative purpose is only half the battle. You are literally moving capital.
Yeah.
Are there actual legal frameworks for this? I imagine the government generally has an opinion when thousands of dollars start changing hands, even if it's in the name of love.
Oh, they definitely do. And this is a crucial element that many people just overlook until they're deep in the process.
I bet.
Wedding cash fund registries are entirely legal in most countries, provided they are managed with strict compliance.
Because I would assume the tax authorities don't just, look the other way just because there's a picture of a couple in a tuxedo and a white dress on the website.
They absolutely don't. The tax implications are a massive factor.
Wait, really? For wedding gifts?
Yeah. Generally speaking, in many regions, wedding gifts are classified as non-taxable for the recipients. However, that blanket statement comes with severe caveats.
Ah, there's always a catch.
Right. Laws vary wildly depending on the specific country you reside in, and more importantly, the actual dollar amount of the contribution.
Oh, like a cap on how much you can receive tax-free?
Exactly. In the United States, for example, there are annual gift tax exclusion limits. So if a wealthy relative decides to wire, say, $20,000 to your new home fund, that transaction might trigger tax reporting requirements for the giver.
Wow. So couples really cannot afford to be ignorant of their local financial regulations.
Not at all.
But that implies a level of accounting that goes way beyond, like writing a quick thank you note. We were talking about maintaining a genuine audit trail here.
You have to.
Because if you're collecting these funds to buy a house, a mortgage lender is going to want to see exactly where that sudden influx of cash came from, right? They won't just take your word that it was a wedding gift.
That is an excellent point regarding mortgage lenders. When you apply for a home loan, lenders actually scrutinize your bank statements.
Right.
If they see $10,000 suddenly appear, they suspect it's an undisclosed loan that you have to pay back.
Which alters your debt-to-income ratio.
Exactly. And this is why strict record keeping is just a non-negotiable requirement for these digital registries. Couples literally must systematically archive payment confirmations, detailed contribution summaries from the platform, transaction details, withdrawal records, all of it.
So you're basically acting as the chief financial officer for your own romance.
A CFO is the perfect analogy.
It's not just about picking out a nice font for the website. It's about actual financial compliance.
And just like any corporate CFO, you're entirely responsible for the security of the funds.
Right.
You cannot just drop a personal payment app handle on an invitation and call it a day.
Because that exposes your guests to potential fraud.
Yeah, and it just looks highly unprofessional. Professional platforms utilize secure payment gateways and encrypted transaction protocols.
Because guests are being asked to input their credit card information.
Right. They will only do that if the digital environment feels airtight and verified.
Okay, Mr. or Madam CFO, here's where I foresee some serious friction.
Let's hear it.
I understand the need for security and platforms, but running those platforms costs money. We all know there are processing fees.
There always are.
I am genuinely struggling with the idea of disclosing those fees to the guests. If I'm asking my family for a gift and I explicitly tell them, hey, by the way, there is a 2.9% processing fee on this. Isn't that incredibly tacky?
People think that, yes.
Doesn't that just invite massive drama? Why not just quietly absorb the fee on the back end so the guest never even sees it?
Well, let's view this through the lens of a restaurant bill.
Okay.
Imagine you go out to eat and you look at the menu. At the bottom, it clearly states that an 18% gratuity is automatically added to parties of 6 or more.
Right. Pretty standard.
You know this up front, you accept it, and you enjoy your meal. Now imagine that warning isn't on the menu.
Oh, I see where you're going.
You get the final bill, and you see a surprise fee tacked onto the total. You feel cheated, even if the amount is exactly the same. Hiding the fee is what actually damages trust.
The surprise factor is the real violation of etiquette, not the fee itself.
Exactly. Digital transactions inherently involve processing fees. Everyone understands this on a logical level, but if a guest contributes $100 and later discovers the platform took a $3 cut who was never mentioned, they feel like their generosity was hijacked.
Like part of their gift went to a tech company instead of the couple.
Yes. By disclosing those fees openly, perhaps by giving the guest the option to cover the fee so the couple receives the full amount, you completely eliminate the deception. Transparency creates a professional, honest guest experience.
Okay, so we have the tax compliance sorted, we're keeping immaculate records for the mortgage lender, and we are being completely transparent about the credit card processing fees.
Sounds like a solid foundation.
But all of this financial machinery still has to be presented to actual human beings. How do you ask a guest, especially from an older, more traditional generation, for money without sounding like a tax collector?
And here we enter the realm of modern etiquette.
The art of the ask.
Right. The fundamental rules of politeness haven't vanished. They've just adapted to a new medium. The core principle when drafting the language for a registry is to aggressively avoid anything that sounds demanding or transactional.
You definitely don't want the registry to read like a ransom note.
Yeah.
You know, deposit $50 into the unmarked digital account if you ever want to see us happily married.
That would certainly trigger some raised eyebrows, to say the least.
Yeah, probably not a great idea.
The tone must remain focused on gratitude and community. A highly effective approach uses language like, your presence at our celebration is the greatest gift. Should you wish to contribute to our future together, a donation to our home down payment fund would be deeply appreciated.
I like that. It softens the request. It makes the financial contribution feel entirely optional and completely secondary to the guest's actual presence.
It does, and it builds directly on that concept of purpose we analyzed earlier. This is where emotional storytelling becomes a mechanical tool.
How so?
Well, a common pitfall is writing something dry and utilitarian, like funds will be used for travel expenses.
Right. That triggers the transactional feeling we want to avoid.
Exactly. Instead, the language should paint a vivid picture of the outcome. Something like, we are so excited to fund our first major adventure together, exploring the historic architecture of Rome.
Oh, that's much better. You aren't asking them to buy an airline ticket or cover a hotel tax. You're inviting them to be a foundational part of your first major adventure.
Yes, you're giving them a role in the story.
But part of managing that story is setting realistic financial expectations, right?
Excellent.
Because if the digital registry prominently displays a goal of $50,000, a guest logging on to give $50 might suddenly feel utterly insignificant.
Like a drop in an ocean.
Exactly. The etiquette of the ask requires structuring the goal so that every contribution, no matter the size, feels impactful and valued.
That's a crucial point. But, no matter how beautifully you craft that narrative, there are always going to be traditional family members who fundamentally reject the premise.
Oh, of course. Aunt Mildred wants to buy a physical thing.
Right. They do not want to give cash. They want to hand you a beautifully wrapped box at the reception.
So if we offer alternatives, like mixing the cash fund with traditional physical household gifts, or even a charitable donation option, doesn't that dilute the primary goal?
How do you mean?
Well, if the couple really truly needs cash for a house, giving people the option to buy a toaster seems counterproductive.
We have to define what etiquette actually aims to achieve here. Etiquette is not a tool to maximize the couple's financial yield.
Okay.
It's a system designed to ensure the comfort and dignity of the guests. Ignoring the psychological preferences of your community is a massive error.
Right. It's about them, not just you.
For many people, particularly from older generations, handing over a physical object is deeply tied to their perception of love and permanence. They want to give you something you will hold in your hands for decades.
So forcing them into a digital transaction alienates them.
Completely. Offering a hybrid registry respects their comfort zone while still providing the digital option for those who actually prefer it.
Okay, so we've established the legal foundations and the psychological nuances of the wording. Now we really have to look at the actual infrastructure.
The tech side.
Right. Where does this carefully crafted, emotionally resonant financial request actually live? And how do you get it in front of the guests without appearing tacky?
This relies entirely on modern digital execution. Specialized registry platforms have emerged specifically to handle this complex intersection of finance and emotion.
Like Weddizer, which was mentioned in our sources.
Exactly. Platforms like Weddizer allow couples to build highly customized branded digital environments. You aren't just sending people to a stark banking portal, you're sending them to an extension of the wedding itself.
Complete with the same visual themes and messaging, right?
Yes.
It honestly sounds like running a highly curated crowdfunding campaign for love.
The mechanics are virtually identical, and the most successful crowdfunding campaigns rely on strict visual and conceptual organization.
So not just one giant money bucket.
Right. And instead of presenting one massive, intimidating pool of money, these platforms allow couples to categorize the funds into specific, digestible buckets.
Oh, I see.
You might have a honeymoon fund, separate new home fund, maybe a date night experiences fund, and perhaps a specialized bucket for a photography package.
Breaking it down like that reinforces the storytelling. A guest can actively choose which part of your life they want to sponsor.
Precisely.
But I'm still caught up on the delivery mechanism here. Traditionally, printing registry information directly on the wedding invitation is considered a severe breach of etiquette. It implies an admission ticket is required.
Yes, that is a huge faux pas.
Has the digital age changed that rule?
No, that boundary remains firmly in place. Printing a URL for a cash fund on the formal invitation is still widely viewed as impolite.
Okay, then how are guests supposed to find this beautifully categorized Weddizer page if you can't put the link on the invite?
You integrate the link seamlessly into the broader communication ecosystem of the wedding.
So like the wedding website.
Exactly. It belongs on the official wedding website, nestled alongside hotel block information and directions to the venue. It can be distributed through bridal shower communications or naturally embedded in the digital RSVP process.
So the goal is for the guest to discover the registry organically.
Right, while they are actively seeking out information about the event rather than having a financial request pushed aggressively into their hands.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most critical phase of this entire
A
operation.
follow-up.
Yes. The event happens, the funds are transferred, the wedding is over. The expectation is that couples send prompt thank you messages. But there is a specific nuance here that I find completely fascinating and honestly slightly jarring.
The specificity of the note.
Yes. The recommendation is to tell the guest precisely how their specific funds were utilized. I have to admit, my instinct is that saying, thank you, your $50 specifically purchased our pasta dinner in Rome, feels almost too granular.
A lot of people feel that way initially.
It borders on oversharing, doesn't it?
It might feel granular, but mathematically and psychologically, it is the most crucial step in the entire process. It closes the loop on the emotional narrative you initiated months earlier.
Okay, how so?
When you specify that their contribution bought the pasta dinner in Rome, you achieve two things. First, you provide absolute transparency. They know exactly where the money went, fulfilling your duty as that CFO we discussed.
Right.
Second, you validate their participation in your life.
You're proving that they didn't just top up your checking account. They provided an actual, tangible memory.
You are actively transforming that digital currency back into an experience. The guest can now visualize you sitting at a table in Italy, enjoying a meal they provided.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that completely erases the cold transactional nature of the original digital transfer.
Exactly. Failing to close that loop, just sending a generic thank you for the cash note, is a massive failure of the system. It leaves the guest feeling like an ATM rather than a cherished friend.
It really seems there is an incredibly delicate balance required here. If any single component of the system breaks down, the whole thing falls apart.
The pitfalls are significant. If a couple lacks financial transparency, guests will simply abandon the page.
Right.
If they use a platform with weak security or confusing user interfaces, the transaction fails. And if they ignore the emotional etiquette, like demanding cash, offering no physical alternatives, or failing to close the narrative loop with a specific thank you, they risk permanently damaging relationships with their closest community.
This has been such a profound look at something we interact with all the time without realizing the complexity behind it. Let's synthesize what we've uncovered today. We have watched the wedding registry evolve from a mechanism for acquiring blenders and kitchen appliances to a highly sophisticated system for transferring digital wealth.
It's a huge leap.
By utilizing secure platforms like Weddizer, acting with the rigor of a corporate CFO to maintain tax and legal transparency, and applying deep psychological empathy to the wording and the follow-up, couples can actually successfully navigate this modern shift.
It highlights a broader societal truth, I think. The fundamental human desire to support a new family hasn't wavered at all. Only the infrastructure has changed.
Right, the core is still there.
We've simply built a new digital framework to facilitate a very ancient tradition.
And for you listening, the next time you encounter a digital cash fund while RSVPing to a wedding, you will see the hidden architecture. You'll recognize the secure payment gateways, the careful categorization of funds, and the precise emotional reading designed to make the request feel as warm and natural as possible.
You won't look at an invite the same way again.
Definitely not. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought that branches off from this shift toward funding pure experiences and investments.
Okay.
As we move away from physical household goods, how does this alter the long-term concept of family heirlooms?
Oh, that's an interesting point. It fundamentally changes what a legacy looks like.
Will a digital photograph of that crowd-funded pasta dinner in Rome carry the same generational weight 50 years from now as the physical silver platter passed down from your great-grandmother? We are essentially replacing tangible artifacts with digitized memories, and it's fascinating to consider what future generations will actually inherit, something to mull over the next time you are deciding which bucket to fund on a digital registry.